There's a pasta dish so controversial that Italians will tell you it doesn't exist in their country. Here's every pasta dish explained. Carbonara. The most famous Italian pasta on earth was invented by American soldiers. That sounds like a joke. It's not. Allied occupied Rome. American GIs carried rations of powdered eggs and dehydrated bacon. A chef named Renato Gualandi took those rations, combined them with dried pasta, and carbonara was born. A dish that now defines Italy was handed to an Italian cook by Americans. Here's where it gets interesting. True carbonara uses 5 ingredients and 5 ingredients only: guanciale, egg yolks, pecorino romano, black pepper, pasta. No cream, no garlic, no butter. The sauce doesn't come from a pan, it forms when hot pasta hits raw egg. Residual heat creates a silky coating, never scrambled eggs. A few degrees off and the egg seizes into scrambled disaster. The cream war is Italy's most bitter food fight. Cream appeared when the rest of the world got the recipe wrong, adding dairy to mask bad technique. Order carbonara with cream in Rome, and the waiter's face will tell you everything. On the tongue, carbonara is rich but not heavy. The guanciale fat carries the pepper. The pecorino cuts through with salt. The egg binds everything into something that tastes like hours of work in a handful of minutes. But carbonara's ingredient purity is nothing compared to the next dish, which has a legally binding document filed with the government listing its exact ingredients by weight. Ragu alla Bolognese. In 1982, the Bologna Chamber of Commerce did something no city has ever done for a sauce. They deposited an official recipe with the government. Real ragu alla Bolognese is legally defined, and here is the part that matters. Almost nobody outside Bologna has ever actually eaten it. What the world calls bolognese, a garlic-heavy tomato sauce dumped on spaghetti, Italians do not recognize. The official recipe tells a completely different story. Coarsely ground beef, pancetta, onion, carrot, celery, tomato paste, white wine, and milk. No garlic, no oregano, no basil. The milk is the secret. It goes in halfway through, tenderizing the meat and rounding out the acidity. The sauce cooks for a minimum of 3 hours. It should be dry, not soupy, and it is never, ever served on spaghetti. In Bologna, ragu goes on tagliatelle, fresh egg pasta wide enough to catch the meat. That is where things split between what the world thinks and what Italy knows. The taste is deep and meaty, with almost no tomato presence. The milk evaporates completely during cooking, but it leaves behind a richness you cannot identify. On tagliatelle, pasta and sauce become one thing. But if bolognese is the most legally complicated pasta in Italy, the next dish is its opposite in every way. 3 ingredients, 2,000 years old, and it has humbled more professional chefs than any recipe in Rome. Cacio e pepe, 3 ingredients, pecorino romano, black pepper, pasta. It looks simple, but it isn't. This dish is 2,000 years old, and it has broken more chefs than any recipe in Rome. Roman shepherds carried these 3 ingredients into the hills because they lasted for months. Dried pasta, aged cheese, and peppercorns. They cooked over a fire, and they ate. That is the entire origin story. The nightmare is in the technique. Pecorino hits hot pasta water, and one of 2 things happens. It emulsifies into glossy cream, or it seizes into grainy gravel. The difference is roughly 5 degrees. Italian physicists, actual physicists, published a scientific paper on the exact starch-to-water ratio required. The starch must gel at the precise moment the cheese fat melts, a couple of degrees off, and you have a pot of cheesy disaster. On the tongue, cacio e pepe is sharp, salty, aggressively peppery, and creamy, without a single drop of cream. When it works, 3 ingredients taste like a finished dish. When it fails, and it fails often, simplicity punishes you. Toast the peppercorns whole, crush them coarse, and never stop stirring. 3 ingredients can humble anyone, but the next sauce was invented before the Roman Empire fell. Cheese, herbs, and garlic, pounded in a mortar by hand. Pesto alla Genovese. The ancient Romans had a paste called maridum, garlic, cheese, herbs, oil, salt, all crushed together in a mortar. Sound familiar? What most people don't realize is that pesto is not just an old recipe, it is a specific place. Modern pesto was born in Liguria, specifically the microclimate of Pra, a hillside outside Genoa. The basil grown there is so tied to that soil and sea air that the European Union granted it DOP status. Use the wrong basil, and by law it is not pesto alla Genovese. The ingredients: Genovese basil, pine nuts, garlic, Parmigiano Reggiano, pecorino, extra virgin olive oil, and salt, all crushed by hand in a mortar, never in a blender. A blender heats the basil through friction, oxidizing the leaves, turning them bitter and brown. The mortar bruises the leaves, releasing oils without heat. That is the single most common mistake, and you can see it immediately in the color. Bright green means mortar. Brown means blender. It tastes bright and herbaceous, garlicky, nutty from the pine nuts, fresh and sharp at the same time. Pesto is never cooked. It is tossed into hot pasta off heat. The residual warmth releases the basil oils without destroying them. That is the taste of Liguria. But this next sauce was thrown together in the middle of the night from whatever scraps were left in a kitchen. And it got one of the most scandalous names in Italian cooking, puttanesca. The name means prostitute's pasta. 3 competing origin stories, and all of them are scandalous. Origin story 1. Neapolitan sex workers made it between clients because it was fast and it was cheap. Origin story 2, the strong smell of garlic, anchovies, and capers lured customers in from the street. The pasta itself was advertising. Origin story 3, and this is the one most historians point to, takes place on the island of Ischia in the 1950s, late at night. A group of hungry customers, a chef named Sandro Petti, with almost nothing left in the kitchen, 4 tomatoes, 2 olives, some capers. The customers told him to just throw whatever garbage together. He did. It was so good he put it on the menu. Here's where it gets interesting. The ingredients are all pantry staples: tomatoes, olives, capers, anchovies, garlic, chili, and olive oil. Nothing fresh is required, but that's the entire point. It tastes briny, salty, fiery, and deeply savory. The anchovies melt into the oil and disappear entirely, leaving behind an umami depth that tastes nothing like fish. Puttanesca was born from having nothing. The next dish was born from the same empty pantry, but this time, the cook was furious. Penne all'arrabbiata. Arrabbiata means angry, and this pasta lives up to its name. Roman-born and brutally simple. Garlic sliced thin, chili flakes, and a lot of them. Olive oil, tomatoes, parsley, pecorino. That's it. The sauce comes together in the time it takes to boil penne. But here is the common mistake. The garlic burns fast. The window between golden and bitter is maybe 15 seconds. When you do it right, the oil carries a nutty, sweet garlic backbone underneath aggressive chili heat. When you do it wrong, the whole dish tastes acrid. There is no fixing burnt garlic. You must start over. What most people don't realize is that arrabbiata was never meant to be mild. Restaurants outside Italy tame it down, less chili, sometimes cream, sometimes cheese piled on top. In Rome, arrabbiata is supposed to make you sweat. The heat builds as you eat, and by the last bite, your mouth is on fire. That is the point. The name is not metaphorical. On the tongue, it's sharp and clean, tomato sweetness up front, then the chili lands, then the pecorino cuts through with salt. No cream, no cushion. Roman food does not apologize. The angriest pasta in Rome came from chili and rage. The next dish came from a husband trying to get his pregnant wife to eat anything at all: fettuccine alfredo. In 1908, Roman restaurateur Alfredo Di Lelio had a problem. His wife Inez was pregnant and so nauseous she could not keep food down. He made the simplest, richest thing he could imagine: fresh fettuccine tossed with butter and parmesan, emulsified with pasta water. She was able to eat it. Then he decided to put it on the menu. The dish might have stayed in Rome forever, but here's where things change. In 1927, Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford, the biggest movie stars on Earth at the time, ate it on their honeymoon. They brought the idea back to America, where it was immediately loaded with cream, chicken, and garlic. Today, fettuccine alfredo does not exist on Italian menus. In Italy, it is called fettuccine al burro, pasta with butter, and nobody orders it. That is where things split. The dish Italy forgot, America turned into a billion-dollar industry. 3 ingredients: fresh fettuccine, butter, and Parmigiano Reggiano. It tastes like pure richness: nutty parmesan, sweet butter, silky pasta. No cream, no chicken. Alfredo is a dish Italy forgot and America ruined. The next dish is so old that the ancient Greeks were eating a version of it before Rome was even a republic: lasagna. Before Rome was an empire, ancient Greeks had a flat dough called laganon, sheets cut into strips. The Romans adopted it, named it lasanum, and eventually someone in Naples decided to stack it. The modern layered lasagna was not born in Bologna, it was born in Naples. A 14th century Neapolitan cookbook contains the first layered recipe. But here is what most people don't realize. Today, there are two completely different dishes sharing one name: lasagna bolognese, green spinach pasta, ragu, bechamel, parmesan. It is silky and restrained: lasagna, napolitana, ricotta, fried meatballs, hard-boiled eggs, sausage, mozzarella. It is a festival of textures. Both are correct. Neither is the other. The taste depends on which border you stand on. In the north, elegance. In the south, abundance. Rest the lasagna 10 minutes before cutting. If you cut it immediately, it slides apart. That is a dish split in two by geography. The next dish united an entire country because the town that invented it was wiped off the map. Amatriciana. On August 24, 2016, an earthquake struck the mountain town of Amatrice. Nearly 300 people died. The town was reduced to rubble. And then something happened that had never happened before for a pasta dish. In the weeks that followed, restaurants across Italy put Amatriciana on their menus, pledging a portion of every single plate to reconstruction. A pasta dish raised millions of euros to rebuild the town that invented it. Food became a lifeline. When tomatoes arrived from the Americas, Amatriciana was born. The ingredients: bucatini, guanciale, San Marzano tomatoes, pecorino romano, white wine, and chili. But here is the war: no onion, no garlic. The people of Amatrice say garlic is heresy. Romans, who adopted the dish as their own, put garlic in everything and often add it anyway. A single ingredient divides a country. It tastes of rich pork fat, bright tomato, sharp pecorino, chili heat. The guanciale must render until crisp but never burnt. Its fat is the entire flavor base. Everything builds from that first step. Amatriciana is a mountain dish that rebuilt a town. The next pasta was named after an opera.